Our chapter 2 in economics deals with the different sectors of the Indian economy. If you look at the pictures in your book, you will see different people doing different things. Someone is selling some clothes, someone is picking cotton, someone is carrying something on his head, while someone is paying someone for something, someone is delivering the letters, some are making bricks. All these people belong to one or the other sector. Now, in the sectors in our economy, we basically have three sectors, that is the primary sector, the secondary sector, and the tertiary sector. Now, the primary sector is based on nature. So, which all things will we take into this? For example, agriculture, mining, fishing, food gathering, all these type of things will be based on nature, and that will come in the primary sector. In the secondary sector, we have manufacturing. Now, whether it is manufacturing of cloth, the cotton will come from agriculture. If it is manufacturing of iron and steel, the iron ore and all will come, the manganese and all will come from mining. So, the raw material will come from the primary sector, and that will be converted into finished goods in the secondary sector. So, that is the manufacturing sector. In the tertiary sector, basically this is known as the service sector. Now, service sector will provide you different types of services, like for example, banking, insurance, warehousing, and so many others. हम जब हमारी इकोनॉमी के बारे में बात करते हैं, तीन भाग उसके जब करते हैं, प्राइमरी, सेकेंडरी और टर्शरी सेक्टर. फर्स्ट जो है प्रकृति के ऊपर टोटली निर्भर रहेगा. जैसे बारिश नहीं हुई तो एग्रीकल्चर होने में दिक्कत होगी. सो दिस टाइप ऑफ सेक्टर इज टोटली बेस्ड ऑन नेचर. यहाँ से जो रॉ मटेरियल आएगा उसको कुछ उपयोगी बनाने के लिए हम सेकेंडरी सेक्टर में मैन्युफैक्चर करते हैं, यानी आपकी जो इंडस्ट्रीज़ है वो आएगी सेकेंडरी सेक्टर में. थर्ड सेक्टर आजकल इसको सबसे ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंस दिया जाता है, बिकॉज डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज़ मोस्टली हैव अ लार्जर टर्शरी सेक्टर, जैसे कि बैंकिंग, इंश्योरेंस, वेयर हाउसिंग, ट्रांसपोर्टेशन. तो यानी आप एक सुविधा देते हैं, आप कुछ बना नहीं रहे, लेकिन आप जैसे इवन टीचिंग, लॉयर है, टीचर है, डॉक्टर है, वो कुछ बना नहीं रहे हैं, वो एक सुविधा आपके लिए पैदा करते हैं या एक सर्विस देते हैं जिसके लिए उनकी आमदनी होती है. So, you have three basic sectors, the primary, secondary and tertiary. Now, here you can see in your primary, it produces natural goods. In your secondary, it produces manufactured goods, and in tertiary, it helps to develop other sectors. That means it is also called aids to trade. यानी व्यापार जो रहता है, buying, selling, वो सब आया service sector में. Now, there are many activities that are undertaken directly using natural resources. For example, cultivation of cotton, or if you say cultivation of groundnuts. Now, that groundnut will be probably sent to a processing mill, and then that will be converted into oil. So, the groundnut came from the primary sector, and then the processed oil that you got, the refined oil that you got, that came from the manufacturing sector. Secondary sector covers activities where the natural products will be used to be able to make goods which will satisfy your wants, and that will be used by the consumer. So, industrial sector, so manufacturing sector, we can also call it the industrial sector. Okay, so all the industries will come in the secondary sector. And the tertiary sector, These are activities that help in the development of the primary and the secondary. So whether it is communication or it is borrowing money, that means lending, borrowing from the bank, or telephone company, all these will come in the tertiary sector. Nowadays, of course, they have started a fourth sector also, which is not included here, and that is the IT sector. Okay, that is the information technology. Service sector also includes some essential services that may not directly help in the production of goods. Like I gave you examples of doctors, teachers, washermen, cobblers, cobblers यानी चमार जो जूता बनाते हैं, तो वो थर्ड सेक्टर में आएंगे. यानी आपके जूते तो बन गए, that was in the manufacturing sector, but उसे रिपेयर करना है, खीला लगाना है, तो that will come in your service sector. So ATM booths are run, call centers are run, all that will come in the tertiary sector. So now today tertiary sector has got more importance. India basically has maximum people working in the primary sector. Maximum people are involved with agriculture, but where the income is concerned, कमाई जो होती है वो tertiary sector से सबसे ज़्यादा निकलती है या सेकेंडरी सेक्टर से. लेकिन जो ज़्यादातर लोग काम कर रहे हैं अभी इंडिया में वो एग्रीकल्चर में लगे हुए हैं. सो इन एग्रीकल्चर यू फाइंड दैट द इनकम इज़ नॉट दैट मच, इवन दो द लेबर्स, दैट मीन्स हाउ मेनी वर्कर्स आर रिक्वायर्ड, विल बी मोर. Comparing the three sectors. Now if you have to compare the three sectors, where will we get the final goods? We get it in from here. Okay, here we have the raw material, here we have the final goods, but how will this reach us? यानी जो हमें मिलना है वो final good, वो हम तक कैसे पहुँचेगा? So that service is provided by the third sector. So final goods and services will come to us because of that. The value of the final goods will always be counted. Now in a country, how much was produced or how much income? Now in the first chapter, we already saw that when we talk about income of a country, यानी हर एक की आमदनी मिला के, यानी जो इंडिया में है, इंडिया की आमदनी हम पकड़ते हैं. और एक तरीका हो सकता है, we'll see आमदनी पूरी प्राइमरी सेक्टर में कितनी हुई, सेकेंडरी सेक्टर में कितनी हुई और टर्शरी सेक्टर में कितनी हुई, उसको मिला के अगेन वी कैन गेट द इनकम ऑफ अ कंट्री. As I told you, income in secondary and tertiary will always be more. Now, the value of the final goods will always be seen. Suppose I have taken from here cotton. In the manufacturing, what I did was I made it into the final product. That means I made it into a garment or a shirt. That shirt was brought into a shop and the shopkeeper sold it to me. So he did the service, that means of buying, selling, all that, and then it came to me. तो आपको जो कीमत लगानी है या कितनी कमाई हुई वो फाइनल एंड प्रोडक्ट पे लगानी है. पहले बीच में अगर आप लगाते हैं तो डबल काउंटिंग की संभावना हो सकती है. सो वी डू नॉट टेक इंटरमीडिएट गुड्स. ओके, सो फाइनल गुड्स आर काउंटेड in national income and intermediate goods are not included, or you can write excluded. To avoid double counting. So when we talk about the whole country's income, we can have income in three different ways. Now पूरे country का income जानने के लिए three methods होते हैं. आप income ले सकते हैं, expenditure ले सकते हैं, या तो production ले सकते हैं. So these are the three ways that you can count national income, but only take the final product. Now, when you're talking about national income, what is the difference between gross domestic product and gross national product. Generally, you might have heard of these terms. Gross, that means you're taking the entire amount minus all the depreciation and all, you don't calculate. So then we talk about gross domestic product, only of those products which are produced within the country. When you talk about national product or national income, then we are also talking about income that came from abroad or from another country into India. So when we talk about these, gross is always a bigger amount, and net national product or net domestic product, when we talk about it, might be a smaller amount, because then you have minus the depreciation in that. Now, historical changes in the sectors over the last period of say 100 years and all, how you can see things have changed. India was originally basically an agricultural country, and now you can see we are also going towards manufacturing and tertiary sector. Generally, it has been noted from histories, now developed countries, that at initial stage of development, primary sector was most important. हिस्ट्री में अगर आप देखते हैं, आज जो हम कंट्रीज़ डेवलप्ड मानते हैं, वो भी बिगनिंग में यानी शुरुआत में उन्होंने प्राइमरी सेक्टर से ही चालू किया था सभी कंट्रीज़ में. उस वक्त उस ज़माने में से अबाउट 250 ईयर्स अगो देयर वाज नो इंडस्ट्री. इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन जब चालू हुआ, उसके बाद में सेकेंडरी सेक्टर बना. As the methods of farming changed and agricultural sector began to prosper, it produced much more food than before. Many people could now take up activities. That means there was more craftspersons, traders, buying and selling. Besides, there were also transporters, administrators, army. However, at this stage, most of the goods produced were natural products from the primary sector, and most people were employed in this sector. Over a long period of time, that means over 100 years or so, especially because new methods of manufacturing were introduced, factories came up and started expanding. Those people who had earlier worked on farms now began to work in factories in large numbers. People began to use many more goods that were produced in factories at cheap rates. Secondary sector gradually became more important in total production and employment. Hence, over a period of time, slowly there was a shift from primary sector to secondary sector. In the past 100 years, there has been a further shift from secondary to tertiary sector in developed countries. The service sector has become the most important in terms of total production. Most of the working people are also employed in service sector. This is the general pattern observed in developed countries. What is the total production and employment in the three sectors in India? Over the years, there has been a change, and this we can see in the graph which is given to you. If you look at the graph, in the first picture that you have, graph number 1, the GDP by primary, secondary and tertiary sectors, you can see in 70-71, nearly all three were equal, or marginally agriculture was more. But in 2010 and 11, you can see how maximum income comes from the tertiary sector. Now, rising importance of the tertiary sector. Over the last 40 years, you can see how it has increased. Services like hospital, educational institutions, post and telegraph, post office, municipal corporation, insurance companies, all these types of services are increasing. In 70-71, in the next graph if you see, you can see that the primary was quite high, but by 2010, you can see that the tertiary has become much higher. Where are most of the people employed now? The number of people employed is in primary sector, but the amount of income that is generated is in tertiary. अभी हिस्ट्री में आप पहले देखेंगे कितनी भी डेवलप कंट्री होगी, पहले उन्होंने चालू किया या शुरुआत की प्राइमरी सेक्टर से. उसके बाद में जब बहुत सारा खाना था, enough to be able to buy and sell, then suddenly you had traders. उनको वक्त मिला दूसरा कुछ करने के लिए, इन्वेंशंस किए. You know that the first industrial revolution was in England. New machines were made and fast production led to each product becoming cheaper. That means per unit used to cost less because it was mass produced. It was produced by machine. People started shifting from the rural areas, यानी ग्रामीण भाग से वो शहर जाने लगे, फैक्ट्रीज में काम करने लगे. So from primary sector slowly you saw change to secondary sector. Secondary sector में जैसे ही आपका मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इतने ज़ोर शोर से चालू हुआ, उसको लोगों तक पहुंचाने के लिए, यानी मार्केट्स बढ़े, लोग बढ़े, डिमांड बढ़ा, उन तक पहुंचाने के लिए ट्रांसपोर्टेशन की ज़रूरत थी, बाइंग सेलिंग के लिए ट्रेडर्स की ज़रूरत थी, शिपिंग, ऑल दिस स्टार्टेड एंड दैट्स वाई द टर्शरी सेक्टर ऑल्सो स्टार्टेड. अगर आप तीनों ग्राफ देखते हैं आपके किताब में, सो यू कैन सी दैट शिफ्ट 1970 के दौरान आप अगर देखते हैं तो प्राइमरी सेक्टर काफ़ी इम्पॉर्टेंट था और ये दोनों भी थे, but it was not that important. And later on you will find that the tertiary sector became most important. लेकिन आप अगर कहना चाहते हैं कि मैक्सिमम लोग कहाँ पे काम करते हैं, तो इंडिया में आज भी हम बोलते हैं कि ज़्यादातर लोग प्राइमरी सेक्टर में काम करते हैं, लेकिन कौन से सेक्टर से आमदनी ज़्यादा मिलती है, तो वो है टर्शरी सेक्टर. सो द इनकम इज़ हाई फ्रॉम द टर्शरी सेक्टर, बट द नंबर ऑफ पीपल एम्प्लॉयड इज़ हाई इन द प्राइमरी सेक्टर. Today, of course, there is a shift. More and more people are coming to the tertiary sector. Okay, so where are most of the people employed? We can see in the primary sector, but where are more and more people now shifting to the tertiary sector? Where does the income come from? Mainly from the tertiary sector. Now, when we talk about people working, there are some concepts that we will see over here. आपकी किताब में underemployed, अनएम्प्लॉयड या डिस्गाइज्ड एम्प्लॉयमेंट, ये सारी अलग अलग कॉन्सेप्ट्स बताई गई है. नाउ एम्प्लॉयमेंट यानी रोजगारी, अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट यानी बेरोजगारी. अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट यानी आपको रोजगार है ही नहीं, यू डू नॉट हैव अ जॉब, बट समटाइम्स यू कैन हैव अंडर एम्प्लॉयमेंट. Now, underemployment means you are capable of working for 8 hours, but you have only 2 hours part-time job, or you are capable of working in a capacity which is much higher level, but you are getting a job which is of very low level. अभी आप engineer हो और आप sweeper का काम करते हो, तो आपको job तो मिल गया, लेकिन उसको हम कहेंगे underemployment. आपकी capacity के मुताबिक आप काम नहीं कर रहे हो, उससे कम कर रहे हो. So here we will see what is underemployment. Now as a result, many people, you know that more and more people will go to secondary and tertiary and also it is not necessary that everyone will get a job. सभी अभी गांव से उठ के अगर शहर आते हैं तो सभी को जॉब नहीं मिलेगा शायद. So industrial output is fast, more people get job. Why do they shift also? कि यहाँ पे बारिश है नहीं है बोल नहीं सकते, तो फैक्ट्री में लग जाएंगे तो उनको परमानेंट आमदनी, रेगुलर आमदनी मिलेगी. More than half of the workers in the country are working in the primary sectors, including agriculture, producing only quarter of the GDP. In contrast to this, the secondary and tertiary sector produce 3/4 of the produce, whereas they employ less than half the people. Does this mean that the workers in agriculture are not producing as much as they could? What it means is that there are more people in agriculture than is necessary. So even if you move a few people out, production will not be affected. That means they are underemployed. यानी उनको जितना काम कर सकते हैं उससे वो कम करते हैं. और एक तरीके से बोल सकते हैं disguised unemployment. Or disguised employment. Now, here we saw in the primary sector, they said that maximum people are working in the primary sector. Okay, so here we see that maximum people are working there, but they are producing only 1/4. तो यहाँ से 1/4 जो है प्राइमरी सेक्टर से आमदनी आती है, सेकेंडरी और टर्शरी सेक्टर से 3/4 आती है। अभी जब ज़्यादा लोग यहाँ पे काम कर रहे हैं, क्यों उनकी आमदनी इतनी कम है? क्योंकि वो कम काम कर रहे हैं, जितना वो श्रम कर सकते हैं उससे कम करते हैं। यानी 4 लोग एक जन का काम, क्योंकि 4 भाई हैं तो चारों भाई उसी छोटे से लैंड पे काम करेंगे। अगर 3 निकल जाते और शहर जाते हैं, सेकेंडरी और टर्शरी सेक्टर में लग जाते हैं, तो वहाँ पे उनकी सेपरेट आमदनी होगी। सो दैट विल बी मच बेटर। So instead of having disguised employment, you can have more people working in the secondary and in the tertiary sector. For instance, take the case of Lakshmi. Now here they have given one example. एक उदाहरण दिया है, owning about 2 hectares of unirrigated land dependent only on rain, growing jawar and arhar. Arhar what we call tuar dal. All 5 members of a family work in the plot. Why? They have nowhere else to go. So the labor effort gets divided. Each one is doing some work, but no one is fully employed. This type of employment is called underemployment, or it is known as disguised unemployment. It is visible that more people. अभी ये लक्ष्मी का जो उदाहरण दिया है उन्होंने, उसका 2 हेक्टर का लैंड है, 5 जन उस पर काम करते हैं। 5 जन की ज़रूरत तो है नहीं, लेकिन 5 जन वहाँ पे काम करते हैं। शायद एक जन 10 घंटे काम करता तो वो काफ़ी हो जाता। यहाँ पे 5 जन 2-2 घंटों के लिए काम करते हैं, बाकी का दिन आराम करते हैं। विच मीन्स द इनकम विल नॉट इंक्रीज, उसमें से आमदनी ज़्यादा नहीं होगी, प्रोडक्शन ज़्यादा नहीं होगा, यानी जितना वो काम कर सकते उतना नहीं कर रहे हैं। सो दे आर कंसिडर्ड टू बी अंडर एम्प्लॉयड। नाउ सपोजिंग अ लैंडलॉर्ड, और एक उदाहरण दिया है, सुखराम comes and hires 1 or 2 members of the family. अभी लक्ष्मी के इस लैंड में सपोज उनको 10 किलो चावल उगाते थे 5 जन मिलके। अगर 2 जन को सुखराम सेपरेटली जॉब देता है कि मेरा बहुत बड़ा लैंड है, यहाँ पे बीज बोने के लिए आ जाओ, फसल काटने के लिए आ जाओ, तो 2 जन सेपरेटली जाके वहाँ से भी कमा के लाते थे। यहाँ पे फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता, 10 किलो जो उनका चावल है उतना ही होता, 3 जन काम करके भी उतना ही मिलता उनको। तो क्यों ना 2 जन बाहर जाके काम करे, वहाँ से आमदनी भी लेके आए। और एक बात है, अगर बारिश नहीं हुई, फसल नहीं हुई, तो लक्ष्मी इज़ डिपेंडिंग टोटली ऑन हर लैंड। इफ़ दीज 2 people are going out to work, they will get income regardless of whether there is rain or not. Secondary and tertiary sector is not dependent on rain. It is not dependent on nature. So you can see that they can get wages and the family can earn more. There are lakhs of farmers like Lakshmi in India. This means that even if we remove a lot of people from agricultural sector and provide them with proper work elsewhere, agricultural production will not suffer. अभी आपकी मम्मी अगर 10 रोटी बनाती है, जब बहू आ जाती है 2 जन काम करते हैं किचन में, क्या वो 20 रोटियां बनाते हैं? एक ही जन बढ़ गया आपके फैमिली मेंबर में। अगर वही बहू अगर बाहर जाके काम करती है और वो आमदनी लाती है, सो इट विल हेल्प इन द हाउस होल्ड। कहने के लिए दोनों किचन में काम कर रहे होते हैं, गपशप लड़ाते हैं, राइट? सो दैट इज़ नोन एज अंडर एम्प्लॉयमेंट, यानी उतना काम नहीं है। अगर आपकी मम्मी 10 रोटी बनाती थी तो वो 12 भी बना सकती है क्योंकि एक जन बढ़ गया, राइट? But if one extra person goes and works and brings income, then it will bring more income to the family. This underemployment can also happen in other sectors. For example, there are thousands of casual workers in the service sector in urban areas who search for daily employment. They are employed as painters, plumbers, repair persons and other doing odd jobs. Many of them don't find work every day. Similarly, we see other people of the service sector on the street pushing a cart, selling something where they may spend the whole day but earn very little. They are doing this work because they don't have better opportunities. अभी जो थैली गाड़ी लेके कुछ बेचने निकलता है, वो पूरा दिन यहाँ से वहाँ जाता है, अपना गाड़ी लेके जाता है, लेकिन उतना बेच नहीं पाता। यानी उसको 10 घंटे उसने बिताए काम करते, लेकिन उसने बहुत ही कम कमाया। वहाँ पे भी उसके लिए अगर परमानेंट जॉब होता जहाँ 10 घंटे वो अच्छे से काम करता, अच्छे से कमाता, तो ही वुड बी फुल्ली एम्प्लॉयड। Just now he is only partly employed. Sometimes you might see near the railway station and all, very often I see big line of people sitting there. And I wondered what are they all sitting with their bag, and they're just sitting there waiting. Plumbers, carpenters, तो जो ये टाइप के काम करते हैं वो वहाँ पे बैठ जाते ताकि शायद कोई बिल्डर बुलाए, ओके हमें 10 प्लम्बर्स चाहिए, 2 प्लम्बर चाहिए, 2 कारपेंटर चाहिए, जो भी चाहिए, तो उनको आज के लिए काम मिल गया, कल आके फिर से वहाँ बैठ जाते हैं. जैसे आप सपोज़ एक्स्ट्रा का काम करते हैं, अब अगर आप सेट पे जाओ, सॉरी आज कोई काम नहीं है, आज सिर्फ हीरो और हीरोइन पे हम शूट करने वाले हैं, तो आप घर जाते हैं, आपका वो दिन बिगड़ गया, आपको काम नहीं मिला. नेक्स्ट डे आप जाते हैं, ओके आज सब सफ़ेद कपड़े पहन के आ जाओ, आज किसी की मौत हुई है तो आप दिखाना चाहते हैं, तो 4-5 जन को आप काम मिल गया, अगले दिन फिर से नहीं मिला. सो ऑन अ डे टू डे बेसिस दे आर नेवर श्योर, do we have work, do we not have work? So then that is also known as underemployment. They are capable of working of 25 to 30 days in a month, but they might end up working only 5 days. So that type is also known as underemployment. Okay. How to create more employment? Now what we are looking at कि ज़्यादा लोगों को रोज़गार कैसे दिया जाए. From the above discussion we can see that there continues to be considerable underemployment in agriculture. There are also people who are not employed at all. In what way can one increase employment for people? Let us look at some of them. Take the case of Lakshmi with her 2-hectare plot of unirrigated land. The government can spend some money or banks can provide loan to construct a well for her family to irrigate the land. Lakshmi will then be able to irrigate her land and take a second crop, that is wheat. During the Rabi season, let us suppose that 1 hectare of wheat can provide employment to 2 people for 50 days, including sowing, watering, fertilizer, application and harvesting. So 2 more members of the family can be employed in her own field. Now suppose a new dam is constructed and the canals are dug to irrigate such farms. This could lead to a lot of employment generation within the agricultural sector, itself reducing the problem of underemployment. तो यहाँ पे एक सोल्यूशन दिया गया है. लक्ष्मी की ही बात ले लो. लक्ष्मी का 2 हेक्टेयर का लैंड था, अनइरिगेटेड. अनइरिगेटेड मीन्स देयर इज कुआं नहीं है, कनाल या नहर नहीं है, टोटली बारिश के ऊपर निर्भर है. 1 क्रॉप इज ग्रोन एवरी ईयर. एक बार वो फसल उगाते हैं, 3 महीने में उनको फसल मिल जाती है. बाकी पूरे साल में फिर फसल नहीं होती है क्योंकि बारिश नहीं होती है. अभी अगर गवर्नमेंट से लोन लेके वो कुआं बनाते हैं या नहर बनता है तो तुरंत 2 क्रॉप्स यानी राबी और खारिफ दोनों सीजन में वो धान उगा सकेंगे. They can increase their income and more work can be done on that same farm, so that underemployment can become full employment यानी throughout the year. Now suppose Lakshmi and other farmers produce much more than before. They would also need to sell some of this. For this they may require transport. If the government invests some money in transportation and storage of crops, it makes better rural roads so the mini trucks reach everywhere. Several farmers like Lakshmi who now have access to water can continue to grow and sell these crops. This activity can provide productive employment to not just farmers but also others such as those in service like transport or trade. Okay. First we saw Lakshmi के land पे 5 जन काम कर रहे हैं, they were underemployed. So we thought 2 of them can go and work for the big landlord and get income. Second option that we saw was we can take government help, have some canal or well or something, and then Lakshmi can grow 2 crops. Now the third stage, now that Lakshmi has more crops, पहले उतना ही धान था जितना उनके फैमिली के लिए लगता था. अभी एक्स्ट्रा धान होने के कारण वो बेचने के लिए कहाँ जाए, तो अगर अच्छी रोड्स बनाई जाए, ट्रांसपोर्टेशन हो तो वो शहर ले जाके बेच सकते हैं, या स्टोरेज फैसिलिटी, नहीं तो वो सब उंदर खा जाएंगे. सो यू नीड प्रॉपर स्टोरेज फैसिलिटी और गोदाम जो है, गोडाउन और वेयर हाउस टू बी एबल टू स्टोर दैट ग्रेन. Lakshmi's need is not confined to water alone. To cultivate the land, she also needs seeds, fertilizers, agricultural equipment, and pump set to draw water. Being a poor farmer, she cannot afford many of these, so she will have to borrow money from money lenders and pay a high rate of interest. If the local bank gives her credit at a reasonable rate of interest, she will be able to buy all these in time and cultivate her land. This means that along with water, we also need to provide cheap agricultural credit to the farmers for farming to improve. We will look at some of these needs in chapter 3. That means that we will see later. तो लक्ष्मी को फर्स्ट चीज मिल गई. Okay, what did she need? Water. Then what did she need? Because she had a lot more to provide for it, so that's why she also needed bank loan to get fertilizers. Then with that she could buy better seeds. She needs warehouse or go down. She needs transportation. All this can be provided through bank loans. That means if she has bank loans, then she will be able to do all this and she can improve her condition. If she goes to a money lender, what is the problem? The money lender will charge very high rate of interest. जो साहूकार रहते हैं वो बहुत हाई इंटरेस्ट लेंगे उससे. तो बैंक अगर उसे लोन देती है, वो बीज ला सकती है, HYV बीज यानी हाई यील्ड वैरायटी, उससे ज़्यादा धान उगेगा, वो बेच सकेगी, अच्छा रोड बनेगा, ट्रांसपोर्ट मिलेगा, पानी मिलेगा, तो लक्ष्मी कैन इम्प्रूव हर लॉट. Another way by which we can tackle this problem is to identify, promote and locate industries and services in semi-rural areas where a large number of people may be employed. तो एम्प्लॉयमेंट बढ़ाने के लिए अभी कौन से तरीके हमने देखे. First, bank can make infrastructure in such a way that it can improve employment. Second, we saw that we have to make industries जिसमें labor intensive हो. ऐसी इंडस्ट्रीज जिसमें मशीन कम और लोग ज़्यादा, सो मोर पीपल विल गेट एम्प्लॉयमेंट. फॉर इंस्टेंस, सपोज मेनी फार्मर्स डिसाइड टू ग्रो अरहर एंड चिकपी. Setting up a dal mill to procure and process these and sell in the cities is one such example. Opening a cold storage could give opportunity for farmers to store their products like potatoes, onions and sell them when the price is good. अभी बैंक से लोन लेके अगर स्टोरेज फैसिलिटीज़, कोल्ड स्टोरेज फैसिलिटी बनाई जाए, फार्मर्स को अगर लगता है कि अभी फसल उगी है सभी यहाँ, तो अभी दाम उतना नहीं मिल रहा है, तो क्यों ना हम थोड़ी देर के लिए रखें, जब दाम अच्छा मिले तब हम बेचेंगे. लेकिन उनके पास स्टोरेज फैसिलिटी नहीं रहती है, कोल्ड स्टोरेज नहीं रहता है, इसीलिए वो कर नहीं पाते. लेकिन बैंक के थ्रू अगर कोल्ड स्टोरेज फैसिलिटी, if they get, they can keep and they can sell it when they get a good price. In villages near forest areas, we can start honey collection centers where farmers can come and sell wild honey. Now suppose a farmer doesn't have a very good level of crop this year because of the problem of rain. He can have some other things by which he earns. Farmer को अगर आमदनी नहीं मिल रही है उतनी, तो साइड बाय साइड ही कैन डू हनी कलेक्शन. मध वो कलेक्ट कर सकता है, उसको बेच सकता है. अगर गाय भैंस है तो दूध बेच सकता है साइड बाय साइड. वीविंग, मेकिंग पिकल्स, सो मेनी डिफरेंट थिंग्स, बास्केट मेकिंग एंड ऑल आर ऑल्सो side by side the farmer can do and he can earn a better income. It is also possible to set up industries that process vegetable and agricultural produce like potatoes, sweet potato, rice, wheat, tomato, fruits that can be sold in outside market. This will provide employment in industries located in semi-rural areas and not necessarily in very large urban areas. सेमी रूरल यानी एकदम गांव भी नहीं, एकदम शहर भी नहीं, बीच के जो एरियाज़ है वहाँ पे छोटी मोटी इंडस्ट्रीज़ बनाई जाए, जिसको रॉ मटेरियल लेके जो प्राइमरी सेक्टर से आता है, आप उसको जैसे टमाटर बनाया तो आप टमेटो केचप का छोटा सा यूनिट लगा सकते हैं. आपके यहाँ आम उगते हैं तो अचार बना सकते हैं और उसको बेच सकते हैं. सो यू हैव अ स्मॉल स्केल इंडस्ट्री प्रोड्यूसिंग ऑल दीज थिंग्स. What groups of people you think are unemployed or underemployed in your area? Can you think of measures that can be taken to help them? So we already saw giving bank loan can help, or creating industries which are labor intensive. That means using less machines and more labor. Lijjat Papad, for example, is one example where lots of women are employed. बहुत सारी महिलाओं को लिज्जत पापड़ में एम्प्लॉयमेंट मिलता है, काम मिलता है, क्योंकि वो मशीन से नहीं बनाए जाते हैं. You need manual labor, and that's why many people get jobs. Do you know that in India, 46.9% of the population belongs to the age group of 5 to 29. Out of this, only 52% are attending educational institutions. The rest are not. They may be at home, or many of them may be working as child laborers. Now, you may know, we divide age group into 3 categories actually. One category is 0 to 14, 15 to 60 and 60 plus. Okay, till whatever. अभी हम age group ऐसे 3 क्यों बनाते हैं? Normally we consider 15 to 60 to be the working group. Below 14, according to the law, children are not allowed to work. They are supposed to be going to school. लेकिन ये पाया जाता है कि काफ़ी बच्चे इस एज ग्रुप में, यानी 14 से पहले 8 साल के बच्चे, 10 साल के बच्चे काम पे जाते हैं, because they need to work. So instead of getting education, they are working. Now, in this age group, when we consider them to be working, a lot of them may not be working. They may not be working, एक, क्योंकि काम ही नहीं मिला. दूसरा, they may not be qualified. They may not be educated enough to get that kind of job that they want. Or the people are more than the jobs available. Because of overpopulation, the jobs are less and the people are more. So many people are unemployed. We don't consider the 60 plus because those people have already retired. So these 2 age groups are the ones who are not working. So from 15 to 60, when we consider them as the working or productive population, among those also many may not be working. तो काफ़ी जन होंगे जो नहीं काम करते, और यहाँ पे काफ़ी जन जो जिनको नहीं काम करना चाहिए करते होंगे काम. आपने देखा होगा बच्चे भी काम करते हैं, but actually that is their age to study. If these children are to attend schools, we will require more buildings, more teachers, more staff. A study conducted by the Planning Commission estimates that nearly 20 lakh jobs can be created in the education sector alone. अगर ये बच्चे स्कूल जाएं, ज़्यादा स्कूल्स बनानी पड़ेगी, ज़्यादा टीचर्स लगेगी, ज़्यादा स्टाफ लगेगा, तो यानी ज़्यादा लोगों को आमदनी मिलेगी एजुकेशन या शिक्षण सेक्टर से. तो ये संभावना तभी है जब गवर्नमेंट कुछ करे. Similarly, if we improve the health situation, we need many more doctors, nurses, health workers in the rural areas. These are some ways in which jobs would be created, and we would also be able to address the important aspects of development that we spoke in chapter 1. So if we start more hospitals, more clinics, ज़्यादा डॉक्टर लोगों को भी काम मिलेगा, नर्स लोगों को काम मिलेगा, and better health facilities will be provided. Every state or region has high potential for increasing the income and employment of people in that area. यानी हर प्रांत में हम employment बढ़ा सकते हैं ऐसे प्रोजेक्ट्स चालू करके. जैसे रोड बनाने का काम है तो काफ़ी लोगों को काम मिलता है, जो पत्थर तोड़ते हैं, जो डामर का काम करते हैं, बांधने का काम करते हैं, रोड बनता है, डैम बनता है, कोई भी चीज़ आप बांधते हो तो वहाँ पे काफ़ी लोगों को काम मिलेगा. It could be tourism or regional craft industry or new services like IT. Now tourism is a very good way. पर्यटक जो आते हैं, when they come to India, more and more hotels are required for them to stay, transportation so that they can go from one place to another. The local crafts will get sold. The local eateries, that means where food is sold, will also get sold. So in general, our country can progress. So tourism is one section where our government is trying to improve the facilities to attract more people to come to India. Of course, the foreigners love to come to India because they have immense capacity of catering to different needs. India has all the kind of things that you need. You want lush greenery, you can go to Kerala. If you want to see the forts and palaces, you can go to Rajasthan. You want to see beautiful temples, you can go down to the south. You want to see the lofty Himalayas. If you want to see the Taj Mahal, so that means endless opportunities for tourism in India. In English, you also have a lesson about Atithi Deva Bhava in your section of tourism. So you know that tourism is very, very important and it can provide employment to a lot of people. Some of these would require proper planning and support from the government. For example, the same study by the Planning Commission says that if tourism as a sector is improved, every year we can give additional employment to more than 35 lakh people. Tourism industry में अकेले गवर्नमेंट ने अगर बहुत अच्छे से उसको बढ़ावा दिया तो 35 लाख पीपल उनको काम मिल सकता है. We must realize that some of the suggestions discussed above would take a long time to implement. यानी ये सुझाव देने के लिए तो easy है कि बैंक के लोन दिए जाए या इंडस्ट्रीज़ चालू की जाए जहाँ पे लोगों को काम मिलता है, तो सुझाव देना बहुत आसान है, लेकिन उसको अमल में लाने के लिए थोड़ा वक्त लगेगा. For the short term, we need some quick measures. Recognizing this, the central government in India made a law implementing the right to work in 200 districts of India and then extended to an additional 130 districts. Right to work. So everyone has the right to work. यानी काम करने का आपको हक है. Right to work. And the government has recognized this right. The remaining districts in rural areas were brought under the Act with effect from 1st April 2008. It is called the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act of 2005. जब employment guarantee देते हैं, let us understand how this concept works. Suppose you are unemployed and you go and write your name. आप वहाँ पे जाके आपका नाम देते हैं कि मुझे काम चाहिए, मुझे रोज़गार चाहिए. The government tries to give you minimum at least 100 hours of days of work, in a year. That means out of 365 days, at least 100 days you will get work. They assure you of that. To all those who are able to and are in need of. यानी किनको काम मिलेगा जिनको गरज भी है और यानी उनको ज़रूरत है और who are capable यानी वो सक्षम है, वो काम कर सकते हैं. They will get 100 days of employment. If the government fails to do its duty to provide employment, it will give unemployment allowance. The type of work that would be in future help to increase the production from land will be given preference under the Act. जब गवर्नमेंट आपको आश्वासन देती है कि 100 डेज का काम हम आपको ज़रूर देंगे, फुल एम्प्लॉयमेंट हम शायद नहीं दे पाए, अगर नहीं दे पाती तो आपको अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट बेनिफिट उसके बजाय देती है. Now here they have given some examples. Division of sectors of organized and unorganized sector. Now first we saw primary, secondary, tertiary sector. Okay, वो अलग चीज़ था. Now we are looking at organized and unorganized sector. Now what is the difference between organized and unorganized sector? Organized sector, you have proper appointment letter, you have got a job, you have job security, you have a salary slip, at the end of it you know how much you'll get bonus, maybe leave and travel insurance, you'll get maybe gratuity, provident fund, whatever you have been promised, and this is very organized. This comes under government rules. Unlike this, the unorganized sector is not at all organized. From the name itself you can come to know. That means there are no rules, there are no regulations, it is not according to government rules. So you are very unsure कि कभी भी अपनी जॉब जा सकती है. So जब हम कहते हैं organized sector, जैसे कि फैक्ट्री वर्कर्स है, उनके पेरोल के हिसाब से उनको पगार मिलेगी, उनको कितना छुट्टी मिलना है, वक्त पे बोनस मिलना है, वो सब ऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में होता है. अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में आपको हमेशा लगेगा कभी भी मेरी जॉब जा सकेगी, कब पता नहीं. सो नाउ यहाँ पे जो उदाहरण दिए हैं, लेट अस लुक एट दैट. फर्स्ट वी हैव कांता. ओके, Kanta works in an office. She attends her office from 9:30 to 5:30. She gets her salary regularly at the end of every month. In addition to the salary, she also gets Provident Fund as per the rules laid down by the government. She also gets medical and other allowances. Kanta does not go to office on Sundays. This is a paid holiday. When she joined work, she was given an appointment letter stating all the terms and condition of work. So which sector does she belong to? आपने देखा कांता काम पे जाती है, उसके फिक्स टाइमिंग है, संडे को छुट्टी मिलती है, उसको प्रोविडेंट फंड भी मिलेगा जब वो काम उसका ख़त्म हो जाएगा और वो रिटायर हो जाएगी. तो शी कम्स अंडर ऑर्गेनाइज्ड सेक्टर. अभी और एक उदाहरण दिया है, दैट इज़ ऑफ कमल. कमल इज़ कांताज नेबर. ही इज़ डेली वेज वर्कर. दैट मीन्स रोज़ उसको जो पगार मिलता है, आज काम किया तो पगार मिला, तो यानी संडे को अगर वो नहीं काम पे गया तो उसे उस दिन का पगार नहीं मिलेगा. ही वर्क्स इन अ नियर बाय ग्रोसरी स्टोर. ग्रोसरी शॉप यानी किराना का दुकान. ही वर्क्स इन द मॉर्निंग 7:30 एंड वर्क्स राइट अप टू 8, यानी वो ज़्यादा घंटे भी काम करता है. According to the government rule, you are supposed to work for 8 or 9 hours and then you are supposed to get a weekly off. And then he works right till 8. He gets no other allowance apart from his wages. He is not paid for the days he does not work. He has therefore no leave or paid holidays, nor was he given any formal letter saying that he is employed in the shop. He can be asked to leave any time. ना उसे कोई चिट्ठी मिली कि आपको काम पे रखा जाता है, उसे कभी भी निकाल सकते हैं. जितने दिन वो काम पे नहीं जाता उसे उतने दिन का पगार नहीं मिलता. सो वी विल से दैट ही कम्स इन द अनऑर्गेनाइज्ड सेक्टर. सो कांता is in the organized sector while Kamal is in the unorganized sector. He does not get anything over and above his wages. So that is the difference. Now Minimum Wages Act was passed, यानी minimum आपको इतना वर्कर को भरना होगा. तो गवर्नमेंट के मुताबिक जितना मिनिमम वेजेस एक्ट है उतना आपको भरना पड़ेगा. जस्ट नाउ फॉर एग्जांपल फॉर टीचर्स 6th पे कमीशन, यानी देयर वाज अ 5th पे कमीशन, 6th पे कमीशन. जैसी महंगाई बढ़ती जाती है गवर्नमेंट डिसाइड्स दैट दिस इज़ द मिनिमम वेजेस दैट यू मस्ट पे. मिनिमम यानी कम से कम इतना आपको उनको भरना है. कितनी छुट्टियां होनी चाहिए वो भी तय किया जाता है. बट दैट ऑल इज़ ओनली इन द ऑर्गेनाइज्ड सेक्टर, not in the unorganized sector. Workers in the organized sector enjoy security of employment. They are expected to work only for fixed number of hours. If they work extra, they get overtime. They get paid overtime for that. They also get several other benefits like we saw provident, gratuity, leave and travel allowance, paid leave, sick leave. So that means that paid leave and sick leave will not be counted as a holiday. You will get your pay for it. They get paid leave, payment during holidays. Some of the teachers, how they enjoy the pay, even though they have April-May holiday or they might have Diwali holiday, but they get pay even for that month. They are supposed to get medical benefits under the law. The factory manager has to ensure facilities like drinking water. जहाँ पे आप काम करते हो, where there is organized sector, other facilities are also to be provided. अभी इतने जन 8 घंटे वहाँ पे काम करेंगे तो पानी होना चाहिए, टॉयलेट फैसिलिटी होनी चाहिए. So all this will also be provided. Plus they will get pension. Now some jobs after you retire, if you don't get gratuity and provident fund, they also have a scheme where they get pension. In contrast, in the unorganized sector, there are no rules and regulation of government. There is no job security. There are no fixed hours. यानी आपसे 10 घंटा काम करवाते हैं या 12 घंटा काम करवाते हैं. Unorganized sector, there are no rules. कभी भी आपकी जॉब जा सकती है. आपको ना चिट्ठी मिली कि आपको जॉब पे रखा गया. There is no proper rules and regulations. There is no extra payment. Days that you don't work, you don't get paid for. Now how to protect workers in the unorganized sector? Now ये जो कामगार unorganized sector के हैं जिनको job security नहीं है उनके लिए क्या किया जाए? Let us see. The organized sector offers jobs that are the most sought after. That means people of course want. Naturally अगर मिलता है तो people will want in the organized sector. But the employment opportunities in the organized sector have been expanding very slowly. In the organized sector, there are less jobs and there are more people. So naturally, उन्हें unorganized sector में जाना पड़ता है. It is also common to find many organized sector enterprises in the unorganized sector. They adopt such strategies to evade taxes and refuse to follow laws that protect laborers. As a result, a large number of workers are forced to enter the unorganized sector, which pay low salary. They are often exploited and not paid a fair wage. Their earnings are low and not regular. This job are not secure and have no other benefits. Sometimes they have to go into the unorganized sector. Okay, let us take the example of a teacher itself. अगर स्कूल को टीचर को पूरा पगार नहीं देना हो, यानी वो कहेंगे अप्रैल में तो छुट्टी रहती है, हम क्यों भरें, दिवाली की छुट्टी रहती है, हम क्यों भरें, तो अगर वो दिन के हिसाब से उनको भरते हैं और कहते हैं कि जितने दिन आपने पढ़ाया उतना ही आपको मिलेगा. So that means the school will not pay them anything over and above. So in spite of being an organized sector होने के बावजूद उसमें unorganized sector भी आ जाता है. यानी जो टीचर्स परमानेंट है उन्हें उनका पेंशन मिलेगा, provident मिलेगा, provident fund, gratuity, everything they will get normal. They will get paid leave also. But those teachers who have been kept on a temporary basis, काफ़ी टाइम चिट्ठी दी जाती है कि आपको रखा जाता है 4 महीने के लिए. So when they keep you for only 4 months, they don't need to give you bonus, they don't need to give you provident fund and all the benefits that you normally get. So you only get paid for that much. Or you are called in as a visiting faculty, so that you get paid only for those number of lectures that you give. So in a way, in an organized sector also it becomes unorganized. Since 1990, it is also common to see large number of workers losing their jobs in the organized sector. 1990 से लेके organized sector में भी काफ़ी लोगों को job से कम किया गया. जब computers आए तभी भी काफ़ी लोगों को निकाला गया, अर्ली रिटायरमेंट दिया गया. 4 जन का काम एक कंप्यूटर अगर करता है तो 3 जन का काम जाता है. So these workers are forced to take up jobs in the unorganized sector with low earning. Hence, beside the need for more work, there is also need for protection and support of the workers in the unorganized sector. Who are these people who need protection? ये कौन से लोग हैं जिनके लिए हम कुछ करें? In the rural areas, the unorganized sector mostly comprises of landless agricultural laborers. ग्रामीण भाग में जिसके पास ज़मीन नहीं है और वो काम मांगने जाता है, अभी बीज बोने का काम करता है, फसल कटाई का काम करता है, उसे एक दिन के लिए कितना पगार मिलना चाहिए, वो उसे खुद को पता नहीं रहता है कि उसका शोषण किया जाता है. गवर्नमेंट हैज़ मेड रूल्स ऑफ मिनिमम वेजेस एक्ट कि मिनिमम उसे इतना मिलना चाहिए, यानी कम से कम, लेकिन उसे पता भी नहीं रहता है कि मिनिमम वेजेस एक्ट बनाया गया है, मिनिमम वेजेस क्या होते हैं, तो जो भी उसको पकड़ाया वो बेचारा लेता है. अगर वो चाहता है थोड़ा नहीं मैं नहीं करूँगा, तो दूसरा ऑलरेडी बंदा वहाँ पे खड़ा है जिसको काम की गरज है या ज़रूरत है, तो वो कम भी दे तो कर देता है क्योंकि उसे काम की ज़रूरत होती है. सो दे आर एक्सप्लॉयटेड या उनका ऐसे शोषण होता है. Farmers, sharecroppers, artisans, weavers, blacksmith, carpenters, goldsmith, nearly 80% of rural households in India are in small and marginal farmer category. These farmers need to be supported through adequate facility for timely delivery of seeds, agricultural inputs, credit, storage facility and marketing outlets. In the urban area, so हमने ग्रामीण विभाग में देखा किसे गरज होगी हमारी मदद की. And now we come to the urban areas. Urban यानी शहर में. Unorganized sector comprises mainly of workers in small scale industry, casual workers in construction, trade and transport, etc. and those who work as street vendors, head load workers, garment makers, rag pickers. Small scale industry also needs government support for procuring raw material and marketing of output. The casual worker is both rural and urban areas need to be protected. So under this act, whom do we have to protect? Basically casual worker. Casual worker वो रहता है जैसे आपको गरज है तो उसको बुला लिया. In a situation आपकी केटरिंग की कंपनी है, शादी का मौसम है, तो आपको ज़्यादा वेटर्स लगेंगे, सर्विस करने के लिए लोग लगेंगे, तो उनको बुला लिया. आज के लिए उनको या ये पूरे सीज़न के लिए उनको जितना भी काम किया उस हिसाब से आपने भरा, उसके बाद में उनको बोला बाय टाटा. They don't have a permanent job. These type of workers are known as casual workers. So they are not going to get paid leave. जितना काम किया उसका आपको मिला. ओवर टाइम आपको नहीं मिलेगा क्योंकि एक फिक्स टाइम नहीं रहता उनका. अगर आप 7 बजे सुबह से 7 बजे शाम तक भी काम कर रहे हैं, आपको जो तय किया गया दिन के हिसाब से उतना ही मिलेगा. यू कैन नॉट से 5 बज गए, ओके बाय आई एम गोइंग. ऑफिस में वैसे जो ऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में आप कर सकते हैं, आपने एक्स्ट्रा काम किया तो आपको बोनस भी मिलता है क्योंकि जितना प्रॉफिट होगा उस हिसाब से बोनस मिलता है. आपने एक्स्ट्रा काम किया 2 घंटे 3 घंटे ओवर टाइम भी दिया जाता है, बट दैट डज नॉट हैपन इन द अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर. We also find that majority of workers from scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, backward communities find themselves in the unorganized sector. Besides getting irregular and low pay, these workers also face social discrimination. Protection and support of unorganized sector is needed. So unorganized sector, who are the people that we saw? Rural and urban casual workers. Other than that, we also saw some of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe. These also come under the unorganized category. So we have to stop their exploitation. Sectors in term of ownership, public and private. So first हमने sectors जो divide किए वो था primary, secondary and tertiary. So that was the first way of dividing. Second method that we saw was organized and unorganized sector. Then we also see now based on ownership. Now based on ownership you can have different types. Let us put it down. Based on ownership you can have private or public sector. Private sector is owned privately by one person or a private enterprise, and public sector is owned by government. Okay, so this is the third way that we are dividing it into sectors. Another way of classifying economic activities into sectors could be on the basis of who owns the assets. So public sector, you know that government owns all the assets and it is basically providing service for the people. Best example of course is the railway. Private sector, the ownership is in the hands of individual or individual companies. Railway and post office can be taken as examples for public sector, or if you talk about TISCO, that is Tata Iron and Steel Company, Telco, that is the Tata company also, Reliance, Birla, all these are private companies. Activities in the private sector will always be guided by profit. So public sector is for public welfare, that is of the government, and the private sector will always want to earn profit. So the government, the main, उनका main ध्येय या लक्ष्य जो रहता है government का service provide करने के लिए, लोगों के लिए सुविधा उनको हो, जैसे कि ट्रांसपोर्टेशन, टेलीफोन, BSNL या MTNL, that is owned by the government. While private companies will naturally want to make profit, उनको ज़्यादा पैसा कमाने की first उनका लक्ष्य वही रहता है. There are several things needed by society as a whole, but which the private sector will not provide at a reasonable cost. Why? Some of them need large amount of money to be spent. तो ऐसे नहीं कि सिर्फ गवर्नमेंट हमें सस्ता देती है इसीलिए पब्लिक सेक्टर है. और एक बात भी है, एक प्राइवेट आदमी के लिए शायद उतना पैसा ना हो इतना बड़ा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बनाने के लिए. फॉर एग्जाम्पल द रेलवेज, इट इज़ ऑल ओवर इंडिया. It is not a network which is only in a certain area. Private buses like Volvo buses and all are privately owned, like you have. So that is possible. But when you have very large amount which has to be spent, like for example when Bhakra Nangal dam was built, that kind of money generally the government is able to spend. यानी उतना अगर पैसा लगता है कोई भी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बनाने में तो गवर्नमेंट के पास वो होता है. Okay, so first thing, the government will have that much money. Second, even if private person does have that money, he may not be willing to put it into it because the returns will come much later. अगर 10 साल लगते हैं, प्राइवेट आदमी अपना उसमें इन्वेस्ट करता है, तो वो चाहता है तुरंत उससे उसका रिटर्न मिले. वो नहीं चाहता है कि 10 साल बाद 15 साल बाद उसका रिटर्न उसे मिलना चालू होगा. So that's why public companies are generally large and generally for the good of the people. For example, electricity, building dams, harbors, all this will be undertaken by public, that is the government companies. There are some activities which the government has to support. The private sector may not continue their production or business unless government encourages it. For example, selling electricity at the cost of generation may push up the cost of production of goods in many industries. Many units, especially small scale units, might have to shut. Government here steps in by producing and supplying electricity at rates which these industries can afford. So government bears the cost. Now please see, the government sometimes bears the cost even for private industry. Private industry कभी कभी उनको इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बहुत महंगी अगर पड़ती है तो फाइनली वो कहाँ से निकालेंगे पैसे? आपसे. तो government provides them with electricity at a reasonable cost. If you have heard of industrial estates जो होते हैं, वहाँ पे the industries are given electricity at a reasonable cost so that they can also sell their product at a reasonable cost. तो वो खर्चा जो है वो गवर्नमेंट खुद उठाती है ताकि आपको सुविधा मिल सके या आपको कम कीमत में वो प्रोडक्ट मिल सके. Similarly, the government in India buys wheat and rice from farmers at a fair price. Now middleman, जो मिडलमैन रहता है वो पहले तो फार्मर को ठीक से दाम नहीं देगा और फिर आपसे ज़्यादा दाम लेता है. फार्मर को 5 रुपये किलो दिया, आपको 20 रुपये किलो में बेचा, उसने बीच में 15 रुपये खुद खा लिए without any effort, only buying from here and selling from here. While the government will give a reasonable price. Reasonable यानी जो कीमत है उस हिसाब से, सपोज 10 रुपये मिलने चाहिए उस फार्मर को, तो फार्मर को भी अच्छी कीमत मिलेगी. गवर्नमेंट इस धान का क्या करती है फिर? पहले ही आपने देखा, वी स्पोक अबाउट राशन शॉप्स, दैट मीन्स द पब्लिक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सर्विस इज रन बाय द गवर्नमेंट. सो दैट 10 रुपये में जो उन्होंने लिया वो आपको प्रोवाइड करते हैं 10 रुपये में. गवर्नमेंट प्रॉफिट नहीं बनाती है उसमें. सो दैट मीन्स final consumer gets the wheat and the rice at a reasonable cost and the farmer also gets a reasonable price. So both will be happy in that way. किसी का शोषण भी नहीं होगा. There are a large number of activities which are the primary responsibility of the government and the government must spend on these: health, education. Now running proper schools so that people are not illiterate. अभी free schools जो है, free hospitals, clinics, that is always in the public sector. That means the government does it for you. Similarly, we know that nearly half of India's children are malnourished. So that's why infant mortality rate is very high in Orissa. Now it's called Odisha. Madhya Pradesh, that is even higher. Bihar, we already saw it was very high. So government will pay attention to it. उनको खुराक मिलती है कि नहीं, फ्री जो डोज दिया जाता है पोलियो के लिए, तो वो सब गवर्नमेंट करती है. इट कॉस्ट द गवर्नमेंट. इट इज़ नॉट दैट द गवर्नमेंट हैज़ फ्री मेडिसिन, बट दे गिव इट फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट सो दैट वी कैन हैव अ पोलियो फ्री कंट्री. It also is the duty of the government to take care of the poorest. So it will spend so that it will benefit the poor. So all this the government does. So when we took the sectors of Indian economy, we saw it in 3 different ways. One was in the primary, secondary, tertiary sector. We also saw the organized and the unorganized sector. And finally, we saw the private and the public sector based on whether it is owned by the government or privately owned. In our organized and unorganized sector, we saw how organized sector is very, very well organized, and as opposed to that, this is not at all organized. In these 3 sectors, we saw that the primary sector was basically based on nature, this was in manufacturing, and this was providing you with services. So I hope it's a little clear to you now.